Welcome back. Coinology. The 1 cent coin dated 1962 with the Denver Mint mark is one of those pieces that at first glance looks ordinary, almost invisible in everyday life, yet the deeper you go into its story the more layers begin to appear. Layers of history, metal, symbolism, economics, human emotion, collector passion, and the powerful myths of big money that surround small copper coins. When people hear 1962 D 1 cent, many immediately think of loose change, something forgotten in a drawer, but for collectors and storytellers this coin opens a door to the early 1960s United States, a nation standing at a crossroads between tradition and modernity, between old metal standards and a new economic reality, between simple pocket change and legendary valuations that spark imagination all over the world. The 1962 D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, and the small letter D beneath the date is more than just a mark. It is a signature of an entire minting facility that had already become essential to U.S. coinage. The Denver Mint had been operating for decades by 1962, and by this time it was producing massive quantities of coins to satisfy a growing population and expanding commerce. America in 1962 was busy, optimistic, and fast-moving, and the 1 cent coin played a daily role in that life, changing hands countless times in grocery stores, gas stations, diners, newspaper stands, and vending machines. Each of these pennies carried not just buying power, but a message of national identity. The weight of the 1962 D 1 cent is approximately 3.11 grams, a standard that had been in place for copper cents for many years. This weight is important because it reflects the composition of the coin, about 95% copper, with the remaining 5% made up of tin and zinc. This heavy copper content is one of the reasons collectors and investors pay attention to these older cents today. Unlike modern pennies that feel lighter and are mostly zinc, the 1962 D cent has a solid, rich copper presence that connects it directly to an era when metal value and coin value felt more closely linked. When you hold one in your hand, the weight is subtle but real, a reminder that even the smallest denomination once carried significant intrinsic material worth. The design of the coin centers on Abraham Lincoln, whose portrait has appeared on the 1 cent coin since 1909. By 1962, Lincoln's image was deeply familiar to Americans, symbolizing unity, honesty, perseverance, and the idea that the nation could endure even its darkest times. The obverse shows Lincoln facing right, with "In God We Trust" above his head, liberty to the left, and the date with the Denver Mint marked to the right. Every one of these elements has meaning. "In God We Trust" reflects the spiritual and moral language of the nation, especially powerful during the Cold War era when 1962 stood right on the edge of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Liberty is not just a word but a promise, and Lincoln himself embodies the struggle to define and defend that promise. On the reverse, the 1962 D cent still uses the wheat ears design, officially known as the wheat reverse, which had been in use from 1909 until 1958, but interestingly the 1962 cent does not carry wheat ears. This is where many people get confused, and understanding this confusion helps explain why myths and legends grow around certain dates. The wheat design was replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial reverse, so the 1962 D cent shows the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., with "United States of America" across the top, "E Pluribus Unum" above the memorial, and 1 cent at the bottom. The memorial design symbolizes remembrance, national pride, and the lasting impact of Lincoln's leadership. Inside the memorial, if the coin is sharply struck, you can even see a tiny seated statue of Lincoln, making this one of the most detailed designs ever placed on such a small coin. The coin symbol, though not always discussed directly, is powerful. The 1 cent represents the foundation of American currency. It is the smallest unit, yet it supports the entire structure of the monetary system. In symbolism, the penny often stands for humility, beginnings, and overlooked value. For collectors, the 1962 D cent symbolizes the end of an era of heavy copper coinage before rising metal prices would force dramatic changes in U.S. minting. It represents stability just before transformation. Historically, 1962 was a remarkable year. John F. Kennedy was president, the space race was accelerating, civil rights movements were gaining momentum, and the world was holding its breath during tense geopolitical standoffs. Coins minted in this year circulated through all of this history silently, witnessing it without ever speaking. A 1962 D cent could have passed through the hands of factory workers, soldiers, students, civil rights activists, shopkeepers, and families saving spare change in jars. Each scratch or tone on a surviving coin is like a fingerprint of that journey. When it comes to value, most people are shocked to learn that the standard circulated 1962 D1 cent is generally worth only a small premium over face value, especially in worn condition. However, the fascination begins when we move into higher grades, rare conditions, mint state examples, and especially error coins. Coins graded MS65, MS66, or higher by professional grading services can command significantly higher prices, sometimes reaching hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on color designation such as red, red-brown, or brown. Full red examples with blazing original luster are especially desirable because copper naturally darkens over time, making bright red survivors scarce. The real excitement, and the source of sensational stories about values reaching into the millions, comes from rare errors, transitional varieties, and legendary what-if scenarios. Collectors dream of discovering a 1962 D cent struck on the wrong planchet, with double dies, off-metal compositions, or dramatic minting mistakes. In the world of numismatics, there are documented cases where error coins from other years have sold for staggering sums, fueling the belief that a unique 1962 D specimen could one day achieve a record-breaking price. Stories circulate about hypothetical auctions where a perfect, undiscovered error cent, combined with pristine condition and historical significance, could attract elite collectors willing to pay unimaginable amounts. This is where the idea of a market value figure like $198 million enters the conversation. While no publicly confirmed sale of a 1962 D1 cent has reached such a figure, the number represents the extreme upper edge of collector imagination, a symbol of how rarity, condition, story, and hype can converge. In numismatic storytelling, such valuations are often discussed as possibilities, legends, or future scenarios, emphasizing that the coin market is driven not only by metal and mintage but by human desire. The thought that a single penny could be worth more than mansions, supercars, or entire businesses captures attention and keeps people searching their change. Market value in the coin world is always changing. It depends on demand, supply, economic conditions, collector trends, and even social media influence. A coin that is overlooked for decades can suddenly explode in popularity if a new variety is discovered or if a famous auction brings attention to a specific date. The 1962 D cent sits in that interesting zone where it is common enough to be accessible, yet old enough and copper-rich enough to feel special. This combination makes it perfect for both beginner collectors and experienced hunters looking for the one extraordinary example that defies expectations. Another factor that adds to the intrigue is condition rarity. Millions of 1962 D cents were minted, but very few survived in flawless condition. Bag marks, contact scratches, improper storage, and circulation were destroyed perfection for most coins. A truly perfect coin, preserved from the moment it left the mint, is extraordinarily rare. When collectors talk about life-changing money, they often mean that one-in-a-million survival, not the average coin. This idea keeps people examining coins under magnification, checking dates, mint marks, and surfaces with hope and excitement. The copper itself plays a role in value discussions. With rising copper prices over the decades, older copper cents have gained an additional layer of interest as metal assets. Although melting US cents is illegal, the intrinsic value of the copper adds psychological and theoretical value to these coins. As the journey of the 1962 D1 cent continues, the deeper layers of its existence begin to reveal how a simple copper coin becomes a mirror of economics, psychology, and human ambition. When collectors speak about this penny, they are not only discussing a piece of metal but a fragment of American life frozen in time. Every year that passes adds another layer of age, another layer of mystery, and another layer of potential fascination to the coin. What was once brand new in 1962, shining bright in mint bags, is now over 6 decades old, and that passage of time alone transforms its identity. One of the most powerful forces behind the rising interest in coins like the 1962 D cent is scarcity through survival. While millions were produced, only a tiny fraction remain in exceptional condition today. Copper is a reactive metal. It tones, it spots, it darkens, and it corrodes if not stored properly. This means that truly original, untouched examples with blazing red surfaces are incredibly rare. Collectors understand that rarity is not just about how many were minted, but about how many still exist in a state that meets the highest standards. A coin that survived untouched for decades becomes a survivor against time itself. The Denver Mint in 1962 was operating at full capacity, responding to the demands of a growing economy. Coins were struck rapidly, bagged in bulk, and shipped across the country. In this high-speed process, perfection was never the goal, efficiency was. That reality makes flawless coins almost miraculous. Each microscopic detail on a high-grade 1962 D cent, from the sharpness of Lincoln's jawline to the clean steps of the Lincoln Memorial, represents a moment when everything went right in the minting process. That perfection is what modern grading services seek, and what collectors are willing to pay extraordinary premiums for. Error coins add another dimension to the story. Errors are accidents, but in numismatics, accidents can become treasures. A doubled die, where the design appears slightly duplicated due to misalignment during the die creation process, can turn an ordinary cent into a highly sought-after rarity. Off-center strikes, wrong planchets, clipped planchets, and die cracks all tell stories of machines pushed beyond their limits. The possibility that a 1962 D cent could carry such an error keeps collectors searching relentlessly. Every discovered error reinforces the belief that more are still waiting to be found. The idea of extreme market values, including figures like $198 million, is rooted in the way collectors think about uniqueness. In theory, if a coin is truly one of a kind, perfectly preserved, historically significant, and desired by the wealthiest collectors on Earth, its price has no ceiling. High-profile coin sales over the years have proven that rarity combined with story can shatter expectations. While such astronomical figures are often speculative, they fuel imagination and interest, drawing new people into the hobby and keeping veterans engaged. Another key element is grading. Professional grading services encapsulate coins in protective holders and assign numerical grades that reflect condition. For copper cents, color designation is critical. A 1962 D cent graded as red is far more valuable than one graded red-brown or brown. This is because original red copper is the closest to how the coin looked when it left the mint. Over time, exposure to air causes copper to darken, making red survivors exceptionally rare. This subtle distinction can mean the difference between a modest value and a staggering one. The market for Lincoln cents is one of the strongest and most consistent in numismatics. Lincoln cents are collected by millions of people worldwide, from casual hobbyists to serious investors. This broad base of interest ensures constant demand. When demand meets rarity, prices rise. The 1962 D cent benefits from being part of this immensely popular series, ensuring it will always have an audience. Emotion plays a massive role as well. Many collectors began their journey with Lincoln cents, pulling pennies from circulation as children, filling folders one slot at a time. The 1962 D cent often appears in these collections, creating nostalgia and personal attachment. Emotional value cannot be measured on a price chart, but it strongly influences buying behavior. When people feel connected to a coin, they are willing to pay more for it. The economic context of 1962 also adds depth. Inflation was low, the dollar was strong, and the penny still had meaningful purchasing power. Comparing that era to today highlights how much has changed. The idea that a penny from that time could now be associated with life-changing wealth creates a dramatic contrast that fascinates audiences. It turns a symbol of small value into a symbol of massive potential. Collectors also consider die states, strike quality, and subtle variations that may not yet be fully documented. As technology improves, new discoveries are still being made even in well-studied series like Lincoln cents. A previously unknown variety of the 1962 D cent could instantly rewrite price guides and historical understanding. This ongoing potential for discovery keeps the coin relevant and exciting. The global reach of coin collecting further amplifies interest. Collectors from around the world seek U.S. coins, viewing them as symbols of American history and economic power. This international demand expands the market far beyond national borders. When wealthy collectors from multiple countries compete for the same rare coin, prices can escalate rapidly. The story of the 1962 D cent is also a lesson in patience. Coins do not usually reach extraordinary values overnight. It takes decades of preservation, recognition, and rising demand. Those who saved coins when they were unpopular often find themselves rewarded later. This reinforces the belief that today's ordinary coins could become tomorrow's legends. At its core, the fascination with the 1962 D1 cent is about transformation. It is about how something small becomes something significant, how time turns everyday objects into historical artifacts, and how belief in rarity can elevate a simple copper disc into the realm of dreams and speculation. Each 1962 D cent carries this potential story within it, waiting for the right conditions to bring it fully to life. As we move even deeper into the story of the 1962 D1 cent, the focus shifts from the physical coin alone to the invisible forces that shape its destiny over time. Coins do not exist in isolation, they live within markets, cultures, and generations of human behavior. The value and mystique surrounding a coin like the 1962 D cent grow slowly, built by countless decisions made by collectors, dealers, historians, and everyday people who chose either to spend it or save it. One of the most important ideas in understanding this coin is the concept of long-term preservation. From the moment a 1962 D cent left the mint, its future was uncertain. Most were tossed into circulation immediately, where friction, moisture, dirt, and human handling began to wear away at their surfaces. Others were stored away in rolls, bags, or drawers, sometimes forgotten for decades. Those forgotten coins are often the most interesting, because they can emerge years later with surprising quality. The difference between a worn, dull cent and a sharply preserved one can be the difference between ordinary change and a highly valuable collectible. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design itself plays a role in grading and desirability. Collectors examine the steps of the memorial, the clarity of the columns, and the sharpness of the inscriptions. Weak strikes can flatten these details, while strong strikes preserve them beautifully. A 1962 D cent with fully defined steps and crisp lettering demonstrates exceptional minting quality, something that commands respect in the numismatic community. These tiny details, invisible to the casual eye, become decisive factors in high-end valuations. Another layer of intrigue comes from die varieties and subtle differences in lettering, spacing, and alignment. Specialists spend years studying minute characteristics, comparing hundreds or thousands of coins to identify patterns. Sometimes these studies reveal previously unknown varieties, which can suddenly turn a common coin into a rarity. The 1962 D cent remains part of this ongoing research landscape. The idea that something undiscovered could still exist gives the coin a living, evolving story rather than a fixed one. The psychology of collecting cannot be ignored. Humans are naturally drawn to the idea of hidden treasure. The fact that a coin as small and common as a penny could potentially be worth enormous sums taps into that universal fascination. People search through jars of change not because it is logical, but because it is hopeful. The 1962 D cent becomes a symbol of that hope, a reminder that extraordinary outcomes sometimes come from ordinary beginnings. Auction history across the broader coin market supports this mindset. Time and again, rare coins have shattered previous records, surprising even experts. Each record-breaking sale reinforces the belief that there are still undiscovered or undervalued pieces waiting for their moment. While such outcomes are rare, they shape expectations and drive interest. In this environment, discussions of extreme valuations, even speculative ones, keep coins like the 1962 D cent in the spotlight. The role of storytelling is crucial. Coins with compelling narratives attract more attention and higher demand. The 1962 D cent benefits from being linked to a dramatic period in American history, to a beloved president depicted on the coin, and to the transition era of U.S. coinage before major metal changes. These stories add emotional weight, transforming the coin from a mere object into a historical witness. Condition census reports also influence market perception. When grading services publish data showing how few coins exist at the highest grades, it validates collector intuition. If only a handful of 1962 D cents are known in top-tier condition, competition for those examples becomes fierce. Scarcity becomes quantifiable, and prices respond accordingly. Even rumors or preliminary reports of extreme rarity can spark renewed interest. The concept of future potential is another driving force. Collectors are not only buying coins for what they are worth today, but for what they might be worth tomorrow. The 1962 D cent, with its copper content, age, and massive collector base, is often seen as a long-term hold. This forward-looking mindset keeps demand alive even when short-term prices fluctuate. Generational change also matters. As older collections are passed down, sold, or rediscovered, new coins enter the market. At the same time, new collectors bring fresh enthusiasm and different perspectives. Each generation re-evaluates what is important and valuable. The 1962 D cent, familiar yet old, bridges generations, making it continuously relevant. In the end, the story of this coin is shaped as much by imagination as by metal. The possibility that a single 1962 D cent could one day be recognized as unique, historic, or record-breaking fuels endless discussion.
It encourages learning, searching, and preservation.
Whether or not any individual coin ever reaches extreme valuations, the journey itself gives meaning to the hobby. The 1962 D1 cent stands as a reminder that value is not fixed.
It evolves with time, knowledge, and belief.
Each year that passes adds another chapter to its story, another reason for collectors to look closer, think deeper, and continue the search for greatness hidden in plain sight. As the story reaches even further, the 1962 D1 cent begins to reflect something larger than itself, becoming a symbol of how history, patience, and perception combine to create value. Coins like this do not suddenly transform, instead, they mature quietly, gaining importance as the years pass and as fewer untouched examples remain. Every decade that moves farther away from 1962 adds weight to the idea that these small copper discs are no longer just currency, but artifacts of a different economic world. One powerful aspect of the 1962 D-cent is its connection to the last great era of traditional U.S. coin metal standards. Before the mid-1960s, American coins were defined by substantial metal content. The cent, though small, was still mostly copper and felt solid in the hand. This physical reality gives the coin a sense of authenticity that modern coins often lack. Collectors appreciate this tactile connection to the past, and it strengthens the emotional bond between the object and its owner. Storage and handling history also play a crucial role in determining a coin's destiny. A cent that spent decades sealed in an original roll or stored in a stable, dry environment can emerge today looking almost as fresh as the day it was minted. Such discoveries capture attention because they feel like time capsules. When a 1962 D-cent surfaces in extraordinary condition after being hidden away for generations, it reinforces the belief that remarkable finds are still possible. The market narrative around coins is influenced heavily by media, online platforms, and word of mouth. Stories of rare pennies selling for astonishing amounts spread quickly, often without full context, but their impact is undeniable. They inspire people to re-examine old collections and spark renewed interest in specific dates and mint marks. The 1962 D-cent, being easy to find yet old enough to be intriguing, benefits from this cycle of attention. Another dimension is the role of certification and trust. In today's market, a coin's value is closely tied to its authentication and grading.
When a high-grade 1962 D-cent is certified, it gains legitimacy and market confidence.
This trust allows serious collectors and investors to compete openly, sometimes driving prices far beyond expectations. The difference between an uncertified coin and a certified one can be dramatic, highlighting how modern systems shape the value of historic objects. The idea of record-breaking value also relies on competition. At the highest levels of collecting, ownership becomes about prestige as much as investment.
Wealthy collectors seek unique or top-ranked coins to complete sets or establish dominance in registries.
If a single 1962 D-cent were recognized as the finest known example or a unique error, competition for it could become intense. In such scenarios, conventional price limits dissolve, replaced by personal desire and status. Educational value adds yet another layer. Coins like the 1962 D-cent serve as entry points into learning about metallurgy, history, economics, and art.
Each detail invites research and curiosity.
As more people learn about coins, the pool of informed collectors grows, increasing demand for quality examples. Knowledge itself becomes a form of value creation. Time also brings loss.
Coins are misplaced, damaged, melted, or forgotten.
Every lost coin increases the relative scarcity of those that remain. This slow attrition is invisible but powerful. The surviving population of 1962 D-cents in top condition shrinks year by year, quietly supporting long-term appreciation. The fascination with extreme numbers, such as hundreds of millions of dollars, reflects more than reality. It reflects aspiration. These figures symbolize the dream that patience and curiosity can lead to extraordinary rewards. Even if such values remain theoretical, they play a role in shaping collector behavior, encouraging preservation and study rather than careless spending. Ultimately, the 1962 D1 teaches a timeless lesson.
Value is not always obvious at first glance. Sometimes it takes decades of survival, layers of history, and the belief of many people to transform something humble into something remarkable.
This coin, small and simple, continues to inspire attention not because of what it was meant to be, but because of what it might become in the eyes of those who understand its story. As the narrative continues, the 1962 D1 begins to feel less like a single object and more like a long journey that is still unfolding. Each surviving coin carries decades of silent movement through pockets, drawers, collections, and sometimes complete obscurity. This long survival creates a powerful sense of endurance. The cent becomes a witness, not only to national history but to personal histories, family stories, and individual moments that will never be recorded anywhere else. One of the most fascinating aspects of the 1962 cent is how ordinary people interact with it compared to serious collectors. To most, it is simply a penny, easily overlooked and casually spent. To collectors, however, it is a subject of intense examination. Magnification reveals tiny worlds on its surface, microscopic lines, dye polish marks, flow lines from striking pressure, and subtle color changes that reveal how the coin has aged. These details tell stories that only careful observers can read. The concept of originality is extremely important in the highest levels of coin collecting. An untouched 1962 cent with natural color, no cleaning, and no artificial enhancement is far more desirable than one that has been altered. Cleaning may make a coin look shiny to the untrained eye, but it permanently damages the surface, destroying originality and dramatically reducing value. This knowledge separates beginners from experts and reinforces the idea that patience and restraint often create more value than action. Another important factor is population comparison. Collectors do not evaluate coins in isolation, they compare them to known examples. When a 1962 cent appears that surpasses others in sharpness, color, or strike, it instantly attracts attention. Being the best known example is a powerful title. In competitive collecting environments, such distinctions can turn a modestly priced coin into a trophy piece. The idea of copper color evolution also deepens the story. Fresh copper begins as bright red, slowly shifts to red-brown, and eventually becomes deep brown. Each stage is natural and expected, yet the earliest stage is the rarest to preserve. A 1962 cent that has retained full red color for over 60 years is not just rare, it is extraordinary. Such a coin represents perfect conditions, careful storage, or sheer luck. Economic cycles influence the coin market as well. During times of uncertainty, tangible assets often attract more attention. Coins, especially those with historical significance and limited supply, are seen as stores of value. The 1962 cent, while small, fits into this broader pattern. Its copper content, age, and collector demand combine to give it a role beyond simple numismatics. Another layer comes from registry set competition. Collectors build sets of coins and register them with grading services, earning points based on quality. In this system, every fraction of a grade matters. A single top-grade 1962 cent can dramatically improve a set's ranking. This competitive pressure pushes prices higher and increases demand for the finest examples. The human element behind every coin also matters. Someone, somewhere, made a decision to save a roll of pennies in 1962. Someone else decided not to spend them. Those small choices echo across decades, shaping what collectors can find today. The survival of high-quality coins often comes down to chance and individual behavior, adding an element of mystery to the hobby. As more time passes, the line between circulating money and historical artifact continues to blur. The 1962 cent has fully crossed that line. It no longer belongs to everyday commerce, it belongs to history. Each year that passes strengthens that identity and deepens its appeal. In this way, the 1962 cent becomes a lesson in perspective. What seems insignificant in one moment can become meaningful in another. Value is not fixed, it grows through time, rarity, and belief. This ongoing transformation is what keeps collectors searching, studying, and dreaming, convinced that even the smallest coin can hold a story far greater than its face value. As the story of the 1962 cent moves forward, it becomes clear that this coin exists at the intersection of time, memory, and human curiosity. Decades have passed since its creation, yet its presence feels alive because collectors continue to search for meaning within it. Each coin that resurfaces today is like a message sent from the past, carrying with it the conditions, decisions, and accidents that allowed it to survive. The Denver Mint itself adds another layer of identity. Every mint has its own characteristics, and Denver coins are often studied for their strike quality and consistency. In 1962, the minting technology was advanced for its time but still imperfect by modern standards. This balance between capability and limitation created subtle variations from coin to coin. Those variations are now the subject of intense study, as collectors try to understand which traits indicate exceptional quality. The surfaces of a 1962 D cent reveal much about its life. Luster, the way light flows across the coin, is one of the first things experts examine. Original mint luster appears as a soft, rolling shine, while cleaned or damaged coins show a harsh, unnatural brightness. Preserving that original luster over decades is rare, and when it survives, it becomes a major driver of value. This fragile quality reminds collectors how easily value can be lost and how difficult it is to preserve. The relationship between rarity and demand is constantly shifting. As more people become aware of collectible coins, demand increases, but supply remains fixed or decreases as coins are lost or damaged. The 1962 D cent sits in a unique position where it is old enough to be historic but recent enough that many people still recognize it. This familiarity helps sustain interest, ensuring that it never fades completely from the collector spotlight. Another fascinating element is the influence of new technology. High-resolution imaging, digital microscopes, and online databases allow collectors to study coins in ways that were impossible decades ago. These tools can reveal previously unnoticed details, die markers, or surface characteristics. As technology advances, the potential for new discoveries involving the 1962 D cent increases, keeping the story dynamic and open-ended. The idea of legacy also plays a role. Many collectors view their coins as something they will pass on, not just as investments but as pieces of history. A well-preserved 1962 D cent can become part of a family's story, handed down through generations. This long-term mindset encourages careful preservation and respect for the object. Market narratives often evolve around key dates, and while the 1962 D cent is not traditionally considered a rare date, its importance lies in condition and possibility rather than mintage alone. This makes it accessible yet challenging. Anyone can find one, but finding an exceptional one is incredibly difficult. This balance keeps collectors engaged without discouraging newcomers. The symbolism of the penny continues to resonate. As inflation reduces purchasing power, the penny becomes more symbolic than practical. Older pennies like the 1962 D cent represent a time when even the smallest coin had more meaning in daily life. This contrast enhances their historical appeal and emotional value. The fascination with extraordinary prices, including speculative figures, persists because it represents the ultimate reward for patience and knowledge. Even if such values remain theoretical, they motivate careful study and long-term thinking. They remind collectors that markets can change dramatically over time. Ultimately, the 1962 D1 cent stands as a quiet example of how history accumulates value. Not through sudden transformation, but through steady survival. Each year adds another layer of context, another reason for collectors to look again, and another chance for the ordinary to become extraordinary in the eyes of those who truly understand its journey. As the narrative of the 1962 D1 cent continues to unfold, it begins to take on the feeling of an endless path rather than a closed story. Coins like this do not reach a final chapter. Instead, they keep evolving as long as people continue to study, collect, and talk about them. Every new collector who picks up a 1962 D cent adds another perspective, another interpretation, and another layer of meaning. One of the strongest forces shaping the future of this coin is time itself. With every passing year, the number of untouched examples declines. Accidental damage, improper storage, environmental exposure, and simple neglect slowly reduce the population of high-quality coins. This quiet, gradual loss increases the relative importance of those that remain well preserved. Time becomes both the enemy and the creator of value. The relationship between the coin and its owner is deeply personal. Some collectors are drawn to the 1962 D cent because it connects them to a specific era, perhaps their birth year or the year their parents were young. Others are drawn by the technical challenge of finding a high-grade example among millions of ordinary ones. This personal connection adds depth to the market, making it more than just numbers and prices. Another important factor is the role of education and shared knowledge. Books, online forums, videos, and discussions allow collectors to exchange information and refine their understanding. As knowledge spreads, appreciation for subtle details grows. What was once overlooked becomes important. This collective learning process continually reshapes how the 1962 D cent is viewed. The coin also serves as a reminder of industrial craftsmanship. Despite being mass-produced, each cent required precise engraving, die preparation, and mechanical striking. The artistry involved in creating Lincoln's portrait and the Lincoln Memorial design reflects the skill of engravers and designers who worked within strict limitations. Recognizing this craftsmanship adds another layer of respect for the coin. Market perception is influenced by rarity rankings and census data. When collectors see that only a few coins exist above a certain grade, it changes how they view every surviving example. Even if most 1962D cents are common, the knowledge that exceptional ones are scarce fuels ongoing interest and competition. The idea of discovery remains central. Somewhere, a forgotten roll of pennies may still exist, waiting to be opened. Somewhere, an overlooked coin may be sitting in a jar, unrecognized. This possibility keeps the search alive. It transforms everyday activities into opportunities for exploration. The 1962D cent also highlights the difference between face value and perceived value. While its face value remains 1 cent, its perceived value can range from negligible to extraordinary depending on condition, rarity, and story. This gap between face value and perceived value is what makes coin collecting endlessly fascinating. As global interest in tangible history grows, coins continue to gain attention as portable, durable artifacts. The 1962D cent fits perfectly into this trend. It is small, accessible, and rich with meaning. Its survival ensures that it will remain part of conversations about history, value, and preservation. In the end, the 1962D 1 cent is less about certainty and more about possibility. It invites people to look closer, to think deeper, and to appreciate the quiet power of time. Its story is not finished, and as long as curiosity exists, it never will be. As the story moves into an even deeper phase, the 1962D 1 cent begins to represent not just a collectible, but a philosophy of observation and patience. Coins like this teach collectors to slow down, to pay attention to small details, and to respect the passage of time. In a fast-moving world, the simple act of studying a single penny becomes a quiet, focused experience, connecting the present moment with decades of history. The survival of a high-quality 1962D cent often depends on circumstances that no one planned. A roll set aside by chance, a drawer that stayed dry, a collection that was never disturbed. These random factors play a decisive role. This randomness adds an element of fate to numismatics, reinforcing the idea that value sometimes emerges not from intention, but from circumstance. The coin also reflects broader shifts in how society views money. In 1962, coins were essential tools of daily commerce. Today, digital transactions dominate, and physical coins are slowly fading from everyday use. This shift makes older coins more meaningful as symbols of a tangible economic past. The 1962D cent stands as a reminder of a time when money was something you could hold, hear, and feel. Another important aspect is the sense of continuity. The Lincoln Cents series connects generations. People who were children in the 1960s remember these coins as ordinary change, while younger collectors see them as relics. This shared reference point creates a bridge across time, allowing different generations to engage with the same object in different ways. The fascination with extreme valuations persists because it challenges assumptions. The idea that a penny could be associated with figures like hundreds of millions of dollars forces people to rethink what value means. It suggests that rarity, story, and desire can outweigh size and material. Even if such numbers remain symbolic, they influence how people perceive potential. The 1962D cent also encourages ethical collecting. As awareness grows, collectors emphasize proper handling, accurate representation, and respect for historical objects. This ethical approach helps preserve coins for future generations and ensures that their stories remain intact. Community plays a major role in keeping the coin story alive. Coin clubs, shows, and online groups provide spaces where enthusiasts share discoveries and insights. These communities sustain interest and ensure that knowledge continues to grow. The 1962D cent benefits from being part of a well-loved and widely discussed series. The idea of permanence versus impermanence is central to the coin's appeal. The cent is made of metal, designed to last, yet it is vulnerable to loss and damage. Its survival highlights the fragile balance between durability and decay. Each well-preserved example feels like a small victory over time. Ultimately, the 1962D 1 cent embodies the idea that greatness does not always announce itself. Sometimes it exists quietly, waiting to be noticed. Through patience, curiosity, and respect for history, collectors give meaning to this small coin, ensuring that its story continues to expand with every new generation that discovers it. As the narrative reaches yet another layer, the 1962 D1 cent becomes a symbol of continuity in a changing world. While technology, economies, and lifestyles transform rapidly, the small copper coin remains unchanged, carrying the same design, weight, and identity it had when it first left the Denver Mint. This stability gives it a timeless quality, making it a quiet anchor to the past. The idea of comparison is central to how collectors understand value. When a 1962 D cent is placed beside modern pennies, the difference is immediately noticeable. The older coin feels heavier, richer in color, and more substantial. This contrast reinforces appreciation for pre-modern minting standards and highlights why older copper cents are held in such high regard. The coin becomes a benchmark, a reference point for what has been lost over time. The story of the 1962 D cent is also shaped by absence. Many coins from this year have vanished through loss, damage, or neglect. Each missing coin increases the relative importance of those that remain. This invisible process of disappearance slowly reshapes the market, making survival itself a form of rarity. Another powerful element is the emotional response that coins evoke. Finding a 1962 D cent in unexpected places, a box, an old wallet, a jar of change, creates a moment of connection with the past. That moment, brief but meaningful, is part of why people continue to care about coins. It turns an object into an experience. The relationship between research and discovery continues to evolve. As new collectors enter the field, fresh questions are asked, and new perspectives emerge. The 1962 D cent benefits from this constant re-examination. It remains relevant because it is never fully exhausted as a subject of study. The concept of ultimate rarity still drives imagination. While most examples are common, the belief that a truly unique specimen could exist keeps hope alive. This belief fuels careful inspection and encourages people to treat even ordinary coins with respect. It transforms routine handling into purposeful searching. The coin also reflects broader themes of value creation. It shows how value is not inherent but constructed through consensus, knowledge, and desire. A penny becomes valuable because people agree that it matters, because they recognize its story, and because they compete for its ownership. The 1962 D cent's role as an educational tool should not be underestimated. It teaches lessons about history, metallurgy, economics, and art. Through studying it, collectors gain a deeper understanding of how societies express identity through money. As the years continue to pass, the line between memory and history blurs. What was once familiar becomes distant, and what was once ordinary becomes rare. The 1962 D1 cent stands firmly on that line, bridging memory and history, reminding us that even the smallest objects can carry enduring significance when time and human attention combine. As we reach the final chapter of this extensive journey through the world of the 1962 D1 cent, the coin emerges not merely as currency, but as a testament to endurance, history, and human imagination. Over 6 decades have passed since it was struck at the Denver Mint, yet it continues to captivate collectors, investors, and enthusiasts alike. Its journey from a simple piece of pocket change to an object of historical and speculative significance illustrates how even the smallest items can carry immense stories and potential value. The 1962 D cent reminds us that time is both a destroyer and a creator. While many examples have worn down, disappeared, or been damaged, the survivors, especially those preserved in pristine condition, become increasingly precious. Each scratch, tone variation, or subtle detail is a record of decades gone by, reflecting the environments, hands, and circumstances it has passed through. Collectors cherish this, because it is a tangible connection to a past that cannot be recreated. In terms of design, the coin continues to impress. Lincoln's dignified portrait on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse speak to artistry, symbolism, and national identity. These elements remind collectors that coins are not just economic tools, they are miniature monuments, carefully crafted to tell stories, inspire respect, and commemorate values. The sharpness of the strike, the preservation of luster, and the vibrancy of color all amplify the coin's aesthetic and historical appeal. The market for the 1962 D1 cent is shaped by both facts and imagination. While the average circulated coin may carry a modest premium over face value, exceptional examples in mint state, especially full red specimens, have become objects of intense desire. Rare error coins or previously unrecorded die varieties add another layer of excitement, sparking hope that a single discovery could dramatically shift perceptions of value. Even speculative figures, such as valuations reaching into the hundreds of millions, serve to highlight the powerful role of rarity, condition, and human desire in shaping collector behavior more than monetary value. The coin embodies lessons about preservation, patience, and observation. It teaches collectors the importance of handling with care, understanding historical context, and recognizing subtle characteristics that differentiate ordinary examples from extraordinary ones. In this way, the 1962 Descent is an educational tool, a bridge between generations of collectors, and a gateway into the wider world of numismatics. Culturally and emotionally, the coin continues to resonate. It connects collectors to a specific moment in American history, the early 1960s, reflecting the political, social, and economic climate of the time. It is a reminder that coins, though small, circulate stories and memories just as much as they circulate value. Each 1962 Descent has its own silent narrative, passed from hand to hand, and each story contributes to the broader tapestry of its significance. Ultimately, the 1962 D1 cent is proof that greatness can exist in the most humble forms. A small, copper disc carries history, artistry, economic context, and human aspiration all at once. Its journey from minting to market, from circulation to preservation, from ordinary change to collectible legend, encapsulates the magic of coin collecting. It is a reminder that even the smallest objects, when observed closely and valued thoughtfully, can reveal infinite layers of meaning, connection, and potential. The story of the 1962 D1 cent does not end with this video, this analysis, or this discussion. Its narrative continues with every collector who seeks it, every researcher who studies it, and every moment it is held, examined, and appreciated. It is timeless, enduring, and endlessly fascinating, proving that even the smallest coin can carry the weight of history, the spark of imagination, and the allure of possibility for generations to come. This concludes the in-depth exploration of the 1962 D1 cent. Its journey is complete in this script, yet its story lives on in the hands and minds of all who value it.